Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to USTA Florida's Here to Serve podcast. I'm Laura Bowen, the Executive Director for USTA Florida, and today I am excited to have with us our USTA Florida 2023-2024 President, Phil Girardi. Welcome back to the podcast, Phil.
Thank you, Laura. I'm excited to be talking about this.
Me too. So today's podcast, we're going to be a little bit more informal than usual. And one of the things I would like to talk about with you today is our strategic priorities. So we have a new board, and you are our board president, and you all have spent quite a bit of time over this summer. You've probably spent more than 6 months working through our strategic priorities. And I thought today we could take some time walking through them. So I've put them up on the screen. We have 4 main strategic priorities. And I thought maybe we'd start with number 1, which is identify and pursue innovative growth opportunities that will attract, engage, and retain new and diverse participants with a key focus on health and wellness, schools, and retaining new players. Why is this such an important priority for us? And what really stands out to you when you look at that on the screen?
Okay, well, this is all about our players. So our current players and our future players. So, and that's the backbone of the organization, and that's the backbone of tennis. Without tennis players, there's no tennis. So we already have a robust tennis community in the state of Florida. So for that group, we want to make sure that we're still retaining those players. So we have a large group of players, league players and such. They're going to be retained. We have to make sure that we do the good job. But there's a whole lot of new players in our section that came from the pandemic, and they found out it was a great activity. It was a safe activity. It's a healthy activity. Thus, why the health and wellness is in there now. And so, how do we get those people that had time to play to keep time and want to keep time to play our sport? So that I think that's big. And then for future players, kids, more kids. There's kids that did not participate in a lot of things, the young ones during the pandemic as well. So This is a group that we need to go after. The other one, high school players, high school players that how do we keep them engaged, into their adulthood? So we have a lot of work to do here. So.
Yeah, I love when we had these conversations that, a lot of times USTA is focused on like elementary school and PE, but we really looked at it more holistically and said exactly what you just said, those high school players. Like there's a lot of youth in that ecosystem of schools that, we're missing. So I love the idea of having schools as, kind of a whole bucket by itself. And then, of course, like you said, the health and wellness. I don't think we do enough to really promote the fact that you can play tennis your entire life, that, studies show you live longer if you play tennis. And I think those are some things that we need to, do more of. So this is a great one. And I love that you all did a great job sort of making this continue to be a key focus for us.
Right. And it has to be. We need players. We want more players, and we want players to be engaged. And the word diverse that's in there, we have to make sure that all areas of our section are covered, and not just coming in and doing a one-time program with them, but how do we get, all those different communities in playing the sport and staying in the sport.
Great point. So let's move on to number 2. I know this one is also really near and dear to your heart because it really gets to how you came into the organization in a lot of ways. This one is to create a system and structure that maximizes volunteer engagement at the local level and recruits new and diverse volunteers with a key focus on advocacy, fundraising, community coaching, and event support. What stands out to you in this strategic priority?
Well, you said it's near and dear to my heart. This one definitely is. They all are. They have to be, right? But
Mhm.
uh, this one, the community coaching effort that we've done to get our strategic priority one done and keeping and engaging, we need more coaches. We need more coaches. We need more bodies on the ground. It just doesn't mean teaching pros, but we need more high school coaches. We need better high school coaches. We need middle school coaches. We need coaches, at after school programs, summer camps, and there's many areas. So uh, I'm very happy with our community coaching program that we've had for the last year and how it's growing. And uh, I'm looking for that. Advocacy on top of that is we're going to need volunteers out there to speak for tennis.
Mm.
There's other sports out there, pickleball, and other activities that catch the ear of the municipalities. And we need tennis is a huge sport, and sometimes we just don't talk about it well enough amongst ourselves and to others. So we need to make sure that we have a group of volunteers around the state that that are going to stand up for tennis and make sure that we keep our facilities you know, just continue to flourish, not just stay where they are. We have more
Mhm.
people. We have areas in the state with a lack of courts. So, I mean, that one stands out. The whole um, after the pandemic now is we need volunteers, but we have to make sure that they, number one, have something to do. But we need the next volunteers who are going to step up to bigger and better things too. So, we need this one. I believe we're going to have a task force on, and we're going to be working on what the volunteer structure is going to look like, going forward.
Yeah, we're, super excited about that. We've done a couple of things the last few years with, obviously our volunteer ACES program, which is more geared toward volunteering at events. And then we've had our leadership academy, which really ended up as a great initiative to have more committee and board volunteers. But I think we've sort of reached that point where there's a lot of gaps that we haven't filled yet. So really excited to get a volunteer group, whether that, ends up being a task force, a project team, whatever, but as many people as we can involved in creating that new structure that would really allow us to, we know we have a lot of volunteers out there. So how do we leverage that power and get them more engaged and involved?
Right. And you were saying that, how I came in, to the organization. I came in as a local volunteer, became a district director, which, there was a succession plan, you might say, for our volunteers. And a lot of the district directors became board members, became
Mhm.
presidents. But we don't have that structure now. And just to be honest,
Right.
it was very hard filling a lot of those spots at the time. So
Mhm.
I'm not, again, I don't think it's going to be the same, but I think we need to look at what that pathway is going to be from becoming a local volunteer to being a volunteer up
Yeah.
through the section.
Community coaching appears on here a couple of different ways, and there's a reason for that because you mentioned how really important it is. And strategic priority number three really expands on that point. And, this priority is to work with our industry partners to implement a comprehensive training and education program that attracts new and diverse coaches and ensures that providers have the resources to attract new players and serve all consumers. My first question is, can you talk a little bit about the partnership aspect of this? Because I know that's been really important to you and to our past president, Dana Andrews. How important is it really for us to partner with the industry on this particular priority?
Well, with this priority, for coaches, um, you don't want redundancy. You don't want everybody working in opposite directions on this. So, we started out. We have a great relationship with USPTA
Mhm.
uh, and that organization for a number of um, pros. Tennis pros, teaching pros, and then but we, you know, realized that we weren't covering all the tennis professionals in Florida. And so we went to with Dan Santorum and talked to PTR to get them involved and get them a similar type of agreement where our organizations can work together. So if we develop and bring in community coaches, they have a pathway to go to. Also, I'm hoping that we can lean on both of them for part of if we need help as far as the education for those coaches. So USPTA is already helping with regional presidents. So I think we need those partnerships. Partnerships are huge. I think the ITA, Intercollegiate, is going to be good. Florida High School Association. We need to strengthen those. Again, it was Dana, our ex-president. It sounds funny to say that now.
We call her past. We'll call her past.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not ex. Yes. So sorry, Dana. But our past president, but anyway, hers was all hands on deck, and she started that. And she started that, getting people together and on the same page. And if we're really going to make progress on all these areas, we really need everybody's help. And we're looking forward to that.
And can you talk a little bit about, we're partnering with PTA, PTR, and, ideally we'd love to have ITA. If Tim Russell's listening to this podcast, give us a call. But, we partner with them, but you said something really important. We're not trying to duplicate efforts. Like, those entities serve a really valuable role in the industry. Can you talk a little bit about how our community coach program sort of leads people into maybe relationships with those organizations, so our audience can get a better understanding of this priority isn't really taking the place of what those organizations do. It's intended to complement it.
Right. I mean, and both those organizations, the USPTA and the PTR, are great organizations. I belong to both. They train and certify tennis professionals, and there is a real need for that. I think once you get to a certain point in your teaching, there is really no minimum, requirement for a tennis pro, and you can there can be some really bad ones out there. So their job is to make sure at some level, once you get to a facility and you need a certified professional to help run your programs and teach your programs, that those people have a certification and they have the knowledge and, of course, the background checks and all that to make sure that they're, ready to do the job correctly. But there's a number of coaches, again, whether it be high school coaches, whether it be summer camp coaches in the public realm, where not all facilities can have a certified professional on every court. So we use combinations of high school players or adult volunteers to, some paid coaches, but always with a teaching professional. And there's a pathway there as far as once we develop that, minor league of coaches, that the cream will rise to the top and they'll look forward to getting their certification because a lot of them will want to take the next step.
Yeah, I think you described it really well earlier this year as the farm system.
Yes.
So what's great about it is you create this farm system, and there's other sports where you see a lot of parent coaches, right? They never maybe played the sport before, and so we always say, if you have a heartbeat, you can be a community coach. We do the background check for you, and we train you, and so it's really that farm system that we can build of people who just have that, beating heart for coaching, and they really want to bring people into the game. And like you said, can be a great asset to a certified teaching pro who needs, the classes have grown so big, they need an assistant on the court. Well, here you go. Here's somebody that can really assist in that capacity. And then at some point, there are a number of talented people who may decide, hey, I want to get certified and I want to follow this as a full-time or part-time career path. So I love that farm system analogy.
Yes.
That's
Maybe
the
it could be
baseball
farm
lover in me, I
system.
think.
Yeah, farm system to the minor leagues to the major leagues. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I don't know. I think you got it. Just you got it right. Um, so number four is the one that I think one of the ones I think we've had the most conversation about over the past 6 months, and um, we really have such a large public tennis center ecosystem in Florida. It's one of the great blessings we have, and it's also why we are able to grow coming out of the pandemic because there are so many public parks and places to play. Um, but we've talked about it over time that we really need to do a better job of providing comprehensive support services to public parks across the state of Florida. So, can you talk a little bit about what that means when we say provide comprehensive support services?
well, running a public tennis facility doesn't mean just going out and giving private lessons. And to make our public centers, relative to the community and vibrant, I think they really need to uh, work on. I think centers need to know what programming they need. They need to
Mm-hmm.
know how to run that programming,
Hmm.
budgets. They need to know how to work with those communities to make sure those courts stay well. So I think in the past, there's a number of public facilities that where one pro goes in there and they start teaching one part of the neighborhood or one part of the
Hmm.
community, and the rest gets left behind. So I think that for municipalities, and public centers especially, that we could provide some guidance as far as how to make your center vibrant, how to make your center relative in your community. And eh, we're learning a lot about that ourselves with our, with the three facilities that we're currently managing. So I think we can take that um, and learn from what we've done, so where we can help other public facilities, in our section, uh, because I think most tennis now is, and the private clubs are important part of our section, especially. Uh, but a lot of tennis is not being played in those now. They're
Right.
being played in the public parks, and we need help there. We definitely need help there.
I'm really glad that you said that point. I mean, the private clubs are such an important part of our ecosystem, but when you look at like the challenges that a public tennis center faces, it's definitely different. I also think it's really special that you know we have several people on our board. I know there's four of you that actually operate at public tennis centers. There's you, Chuck, Rita, and Marcelo. And then we have a new board member, Kainoa, that's on a private club in Vero. And so to say that our board, our leadership who sets the strategy really has an intimate understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this space is kind of an understatement. That's half our board right there. And then to have our staff heavily engaged day to day in managing three public tennis centers, we really are a partner in this and we're living and breathing it every day. We don't have some magic wand, right? We're struggling along with everyone else. And I think that's really why we got into this business. And I just really love that um, our board has always seen this as a priority and that it remains a priority. And the expertise that we have there is, in many ways unmatched in the tennis industry.
Well, I mean, amazing team that we have, and I love having them all in there. Chuck is, definitely Chuck was huge in the private sector,
Mhm.
and we've had some conversations about his you know his going into the public sector and
Right.
its own unique challenges, and they are so they're definitely different animals, and but the public sector is where it's going. That's where tennis is heading nationwide, especially. So the game will not grow uh, without the public centers. And to be honest, the private clubs, the public centers are kind of like the farm system for
Mhm.
the
That's so
private
true.
clubs.
They're like a feeder system. That's such a good way to say it. Mhm.
And I just know that from being at a public center for
Mhm.
27 years now, where you bring beginners in, and then they start learning, and then they start learning how to play league, and they get more interested. Next thing you know, they're going to a private club, because they like some of the amenities that they don't have at some of the public
Right.
centers. So I think the private clubs are going to suffer in the future if the public sector does not perform
Yeah.
well as well.
And I think we saw that before the pandemic, right? We did see private clubs, really struggling to hold on. And I think we want a healthy ecosystem across the board. So, like you said, the more people we bring into the public sector, the more the private sector grows. And there's something for everyone, which is ideally what we want to create in Florida. From the high performance junior to the 45-year-old person that is just picking up a racket for the first time. I mean, we want something for everyone. And I again think that's such a great thing about Florida is our ecosystem is so diverse that we do have something for everyone. And if we can help them all perform to get well together, everybody wins. It's that, rising tide lifts all boats sort of thing.
Oh, definitely. I mean, because going around our section, there's places, in my area, and I have a public center, you can throw a rock, and almost hit the next private club.
Mm,
There's also places that there's not one for hundreds of miles,
yeah.
and it's all public. So, and each community is different. So, this is a tough one. Priority 4 is a tough one on how to figure out. Um, there is no secret sauce. I think. I
Mhm.
think every community is going to be different, and so we have to try to find a way to get the strengths of each community. Especially in the tennis community in each area, and how do we help the municipalities get the programming and get the people in they need to take care of that particular area.
So, with that, I will return our faces to the screen. Those of you listening, you won't have seen the priorities up there, but you can absolutely find a link to them on our website and our social media channels. But Phil, as you look at them holistically, all four of those priorities that we just laid out, you know, in terms of your experience with the organization, how do you view like the next 2 years? What do you see as sort of our biggest opportunities to grow the game if you were to maybe summarize it for our audience today? Where do you see us having the most impact on growth over the next say 4 or 5 years?
Well, 4 or 5 years, you know, it, definitely taking care of the players we currently have is going to be, and those new players that have come in. That retention part is going to be huge. Our leagues are already busting at the seams and breaking records, or I'm not sure if it's breaking records of all time,
Yep,
but
it's breaking
there
records.
that's what I thought. And we are just, more people want to play regularly. So th- that's a big thing right now, is how to take care of them and how to keep the courts up and going. So infrastructure, I think we're going to have to take a huge look at infrastructure in the next 4 to 5 years, uh, to keep the game, moving along. Uh, I think we have to learn those ways to bridge the gap from juniors to young adults to the older adults, and so people don't drop out as well. Uh, I really hope also that after the pandemic, we can start getting more kids back in and involved, just to play for the health of it. Our the red ball, orange ball programs. We've talked about, uh, and I'm going to say it, that how many public centers right now are using the pickleball courts, ours included, to train their kids on, because it
Yeah,
really is good for the kids to play on a smaller court with different equipment.
yeah,
So so I and then the other one, is in the retaining players, is going to be the volunteer organization. And
yeah.
And I hate to say one is bigger than the other, but the volunteers and the people we're going to need 4 or 5 years from now, where are
So
they
true.
going to come from
Yeah.
and how are we going to get them there? And so, yeah, we want to make sure that everything is running well with the leagues and the tournaments. But at the same time, if we don't look forward to those 4 or 5 years from now, when there are more players, then we're going to be caught, shorthanded.
Well, I think you summed that up well, and I really am grateful to you and our board and the leadership for really charting a great course for us, and also just thank you for taking the time today to lay it out on the podcast so that more people can know, hey, this is our path to the future, and anyone out there who is interested in volunteering and joining us, we'd love to have you.
Right. And I just have to thank you and the staff for at USTA Florida. eh, Going through the process, I opened my eyes quite a bit as to what the staff actually does, and the input on the strategic planning was just was I've never seen it before in my 20 years with the section. So I think it's a total buy-in from both sides, and we really want to grow this game.
Best team in the business. People might say I'm biased, but I think Florida has the best team of staff and volunteers in the business. So that's a good note for us to end on today. For those of you who are listening to the audio only version of this podcast, be sure to check out USTA Florida's YouTube channel or any of our social media where you can find the full video version. We'll also link to our strategic plan so you can check it out for yourself. For more episodes of the Here to Serve podcast, visit USTAFlorida.com/here to serve. Thanks for tuning in and have a wonderful day.